Penn State fans to the blue white breakdown. I'm Max Ralph. That's Johnny McGonigal. You might have seen us earlier if you're an avid YouTube watcher. We did give you a quick reaction from Matt Campbell's first press conference at Penn State, but we're here, we're live. We're going to give you an in depth reaction. And Johnny, as we talked about earlier, if you didn't see the video, both of us are in pretty solid agreement that Matt Campbell really crushed his first introduction to Penn State. Seems like the fit is really great here at the university. And he talked for, I think his portion was about 45 minutes. We also had a few minutes from Pat Kraft and President Neely Bendapudi. But it went really well. And just for anybody who might not have seen the rapid reaction earlier, Johnny, can you give me your quick takeaways from Matt Campbell's introduction in Happy Valley?
Yeah, Max. I mean, my first introduction, my first thoughts. I actually just published them on
Yeah.
PennLive.com in a column, and the headline should tell you all you need to know. Penn
Mhm.
State's Matt Campbell earns first win at introductory press conference.
Yeah.
The guy will not coach a game for Penn State until September 5th, 2026, when Penn State welcomes who, Max, in the 2026 season opener to Beaver Stadium.
Hmm. Yeah.
No, who are they welcome? Who are they
Oh,
host in the
God.
opener?
Wait. Temple? No, no,
Oh, that's later.
dude. Um, my brain is so fried from the coaching search. You are asking way too much of me right now.
I know. I figured I'd be mean real quick because I looked it up. That's the only reason why I know for the story.
That's
Marshall,
not fair, man. Marshall, that's
Marshall.
right. It's
Um,
Marshall. I know Temple's in there, and then like the other one's blanking on me.
that doesn't matter right now. Right now, yeah. So they will open next season at home against Marshall. That will be Matt Campbell's first game. He has not coached a game yet, and yet I think he got his first win. He went 1-0 today on Monday in his introductory press conference. And look, we mentioned it in the kind of our post game quote unquote video
Right.
on the field of Beaver Stadium that it can be easy to do that at an
Mhm.
intro press conference, right? I mean, your opening statements are crafted, whether it's by you, by PR or like whatever. Like sometimes coaches don't even write their own stuff; they just look at the paper and read it.
Mhm.
But you could tell that, and maybe this is me just kind of buying in because I was already in on Matt Campbell even
Yeah.
earlier in this process, but just kind of very much bought into what he said, how he said it, the emotion, the candor. It was all seemed very genuine.
Yeah.
That he is fully invested, obviously, in Penn State. It was going to take a lot for him to leave Iowa State, and that lot was an opportunity to coach at Penn State. And for various reasons, this makes sense for him. This is what he wanted, and this is ultimately what Penn State needed.
Yeah, I'm with you, Johnny. It's okay to admit that you're drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit right now.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
fine.
because honestly, I'm right there with you. Like, it gave me some flashbacks, but like even on another level. But I remember when Manny Diaz was introduced, that I feel like everybody on the beat was like, wow, okay, you see why that guy was a head coach before. You see why he's going to be a head coach again soon. And you can see why this is a really great hire for Penn State. I really think Campbell took it even a step further because he clearly gets it. Like Pat Kraft on October 13th, after firing James Franklin, was like, we want somebody who understands the weight of we are, but isn't afraid to evolve into the future in the modern age of college football. And everything Matt Campbell said today to me really hammered that home. I mean, he talks about like one of the first things he said was when I spent time with my grandparents in Carmichael's, Pennsylvania, all you heard about was Joe Paterno and the success of Penn State football. He says, I was a tight end in high school. I wanted to be like Kyle Brady. He's from Massillon, Ohio, which is right near Canton, which is where Todd Blackledge grew up and played high school football. So, like, he gets this thing and he's talking about it. And he's like, whether it's him trying to appeal to the fan base, to donors, whatever it may be, he did a great job of it. And it sounded pretty real. I mean, what do you make of him clearly acknowledging the history of Penn State in this press conference?
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things he mentioned was the Joe Paterno end of it, and
Yeah.
saying, my grandparents, great grandparents always talked about the history and tradition and the character of Penn State's programs under him. And the other part of it, though, Max, which I also appreciated, is at the very end of the press conference, he was asked, if he could just dive deeper into those Penn State
Yeah.
roots, because he said he had the utmost respect for James Franklin, for Bill O'Brien. Like I mentioned, he mentioned Joe Paterno. Like, so he was asked, like, could you just dive deeper into that? Like, do you know Bill or James from coaching conventions? Did you ever, ever meet Joe? Anything like that? Have you ever been to Penn State? Have you ever been to a Penn State game? And he was just like, no to all of it. He's like, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, no to all of it, but I appreciate the tradition here. And he's been an admirer from afar. So I thought that was refreshing because like, he didn't try to just, I don't know. He didn't try to like gloss over it or shoehorn it in or like, not like, it's okay that he's never, been to a Penn State whiteout.
Right.
Like,
Right.
that's okay. You don't need to in order to appreciate that. I mean, he will appreciate the whiteout whenever he does eventually coach in one. We'll see.
Right.
We'll see which one that is in 2026. Um, but I thought he handled everything really well. The deference and like the respect for the past, while at the same time like he mentioned really James and Bill, what the jobs that they did to kind of put this program in the position that it's in overall, again, coming out of 2011 and everything else. He didn't mention that specifically, but I think that's what he was kind of getting at.
Right.
For them to bring the program back to what it is and have me be able to step into this opportunity with like it being where it is. Like he really appreciated that. You could tell. And again, it's a reason why he took this job because he was very settled at Iowa State, turned down overtures from the NFL, from other major college football programs. He mentioned that in 2020 when COVID happened, he's spending more time with his family and, as like he's not sleeping in the office as much kind of as coaches would do.
Yeah.
And he's just, it kind of like gave him a little bit more perspective of like, if, whenever I decide to move or move on, it's going to be for my family and it's going to be somewhere where I can see myself ending my career. So that's the way he looks at this job. And that's kind of how we always looked at Matt Campbell, again, the Ohio native who well respected in all the coaching circles. We kind of figured that if he was turning down the Detroit Lions, like he was probably only leaving for a handful of jobs, a Penn State, and Ohio State, and Michigan, and Notre Dame. And Penn State opened up. It took them a little bit to get there, but they got him. So today was a win for Matt Campbell, and I think a win too for Pat Kraft.
Yeah. I said this on our post-game reaction, so to speak, and I'm going to repeat it. One of the quotes that just stands out to me the most, and I wrote a story on PennLive.com that you can check out too, where a lot of his words are in there verbatim. But the thing that I keep going back to when I think about what he said today was, look, that time at home allowed me to realize what my priorities were, what my family situation was, that if I was going to leave, it had to be a family decision. His parents are closer to him here at Penn State. They're about a 2.5 hour drive away. And he said, if I was going to leave, I wanted to go somewhere where I was going to finish my career. And I found that here. And that's like, that can be coach speak to an extent, but not everybody's saying that. You're not getting that in every introductory press conference. It's clear he's very serious about being here at Penn State. It's also very clear that he believes in the vision that Pat Kraft has for this program, the buy-in from Neely Bendapudi as well. But I think that vision from Pat Kraft is something that I want to dive a little deeper on here, Johnny, as it pertains to Matt Campbell, because it was laid out like very clearly when he fired James Franklin. I mentioned it earlier in the podcast, but he said, got to understand who we are, got to understand how to evolve to the modern game. And that was a not so subtle. It wasn't necessarily a dig, but it was a reminder that James Franklin was not the fastest to evolve with the transfer portal, with NIL. Some of the ways that he preferred to do those things was not how it was being done at some of the schools where you're talking about national championships, where you're in the playoff every single year. Kraft wanted things to be different. And I think Matt Campbell, I got the chance to ask him about his recruiting philosophy financially, geographically. And I think he kind of towed the line really well about what his philosophy is, how he plans to put Pat Kraft's vision into practice.
Yeah. And look, this was just hitting on the James end of it too. Just to kind of wrap that thought up, like it very much needs to look, at least it should, in my opinion, I think in Pat Kraft's opinion, like an NFL deal where you have a general manager and The head coach obviously is involved with decision-making processes on bringing certain players in and what maybe the roster needs overall, how you're going to allocate money, all that kind of stuff. Um, but James Franklin, him and Andy Frank, who was essentially Penn State's GM under Franklin,
Right.
like Frank was doing, for the better or worse, like what James Franklin wanted him to do.
Correct.
So he was running the show,
Yes.
and he, as everyone knows, James Franklin very much. I don't know if you want to call him a micromanager, kind of just has his hands in everything. And
Yeah.
again, that can be a positive sometimes, and that can be a negative. And I think ultimately at the end of his tenure, Pat Kraft viewed that as a negative. And so that's why you go out and you get Matt Campbell, but also like he is bringing in his guy, at least to
Yeah.
have a say in roster construction. But it's someone that he trusts, and someone who he called, Matt Campbell called, one of the best minds in college football.
Yep.
So there's going to be some synergy there, which is good. It's not like it's like some total, rando stats and numbers guy off the street,
Right.
to figure all this out. But there is going to be more of I think, a clearly defined roles, and that's a good thing. I
Yeah.
think I really think that's a good thing, and that's kind of where a lot of top programs are going anyway.
Yeah, it's a little more like NFL like. I mean, Pat Kraft said, "Look, these aren't professional players, like they're still college students, but they're making money. We got to be able to navigate all that." And a
Yep.
GM helps that in a big way. And as you mentioned, Matt Campbell confirmed that Derek Hooger, who was with him for all of his years at Iowa State, and actually before, Hooger is an Iowa State alum. I believe he graduated in 2014, if I'm remembering the number correctly, and he was on the staff all through his student years, all through afterward, and worked his way up to this GM role for Matt Campbell. And Campbell, the other thing he said when I asked him about kind of the finances of recruiting is he said, "Look, it's a unique advantage in a lot of ways, but it's not going to be our first. It's not going to be our first priority. Like we want guys who want to be here at Penn State, which is a little bit similar to what James Franklin said and how he at least approached this thing publicly. But what Matt Campbell said today that I think is a big difference is he said, Pat Kraft has made a sacrifice in the athletic department to give us everything we need to be able to compete among everybody else out there. And I think that that's an acknowledgement that, like, yeah, maybe they don't want to blow a bunch of money on whoever it may be, but there's going to be some calculated decisions. And I think that they're going to be willing to do things in a very different way than what James Franklin did in the past, which ultimately, I mean, it cost them. It did. There were recruiting battles every year that they lost that they were in on. I mean, you could look at this summer just as a as a very recent example. I mean, how many high 4, 5-star blue chip guys did Penn State lose out on in the month of July who were within the recruiting footprint? It was at least 4 or 5. Joey O'Brien at LaSalle is the first one off the top of my head. And like these things play a factor, and I do think that that's going to be different under Matt Campbell. Um, and he also said transfer portal is going to be a thing. I love what he said. It was kind of like a humble brag almost, Johnny. Like
It was a not so humble brag.
yeah, right. Because he said, look, we have to embrace the portal. We're always going to be focused on development of high school. We're going to embrace the portal. And it basically credited Hoosier for what he did in the scouting department for identifying a Jaden Higgins, for identifying a oh my gosh, his name is blanking on me. They had an offensive tackle who was drafted in the 4th round this year, Jalen
Yes.
Thomas. I think that's his name.
Yeah.
Um, sorry about that. Like I said, long week, long coaching search. But and he says, look, these guys
54
were
days, buddy.
right. These guys were ranked like 40th, 50th at their positions in the transfer portal. They ended up being among the top 5 portal guys drafted out of their position. So I just think like he's not going full bore on portal, spending money, blah, blah, blah. But I do think that you could see a little bit of a change in the public mindset from him. And that ultimately is really what Pat Kraft wanted out of the next head coach.
That, and then also again, we have to remember too, like Matt Campbell's perspective and his thoughts on this might very well evolve, especially when it comes time for portal hunting season.
Mhm.
And first of all, we'll see how many Penn State players stay and
Yeah,
how many needs they need to fill via the portal.
right.
So that could change, at least in the short term, for what this team and roster will need going into next season. But also, he's never had the funds that he's going to have at his fingertips.
Mhm.
He's never had that. And,
Yep.
and I think that's a really obviously a massive credit to him. A part of the reason why Iowa State has been so successful under him over the last 10 years. And again, just to hit on this, some people want to compare his record with James Franklin's and be like, oh, he's Franklin 2.0. Um, Matt Campbell's 16-27, I believe, record against AP top 25 teams. And Franklin's, I think, is 15-28. Pretty similar. But at the same time, him doing it at Iowa State is very different than Penn State doing it at Penn State. Now, I know on one hand, it's like, well, Penn State's gone up against Ohio State so many times. And, there's workarounds there. There's little tweaks, whatever. But the greater point is that Matt Campbell, over the course of 10 years, built a winner on the back of player development and really advanced scouting and really high level and shrewd scouting.
Yeah.
And he's going to bring that to Penn State, and he's going to bring that mindset and those ideas while having a lot of money,
Yeah.
while having a lot of money, way more money than he ever thought he could fathom at Iowa State, more
Right.
than they could afford, really. And that's a big part of it. And
Mhm.
and I think when you heard the AD Jamie Pollard from Iowa State, his comments, I guess it was Friday night, and he said, "Look, Matt Campbell owes Iowa State nothing."
Mhm.
Just being appreciative of the time and success that he had there. But I think also in the back of his mind, it's like, we can't offer what Penn State is offering. And that's not just coaching salary, that's assistant salary pool, and that's NIL resources as well. So, he is going to be set up for success here. And I said he hasn't won a game yet. We'll find out, if he really is the home run hire,
Right.
once we
Right.
get 2 or 3 dozen games in, few years in. But so far so good today. And I signed off on the hire, even before his name really popped up a few days ago, which feels like weeks ago at this point.
Yeah. So just to kind of circle back on the realness note of how
Yeah.
all of this went today. I mean, he was tearing up when he thanked Iowa State, and I thought that was very real because the guy spent 10 years there.
My
And
favorite
as
part
you
of the press
said,
conference, Max, was my
what's
favorite
that?
part. That was my favorite part of the press conference.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was real. That was genuine. And this is a guy who had a lot of opportunities to leave a situation that just genuinely wasn't very good. Like Iowa State is not a great job in Power Four conferences, but he stayed over and over, and that means a lot. Like the loyalty is there. Um, he teared up about it, but then he also said at a couple points, look, we had to do it ourselves there. We built our own collective. We were going up against people who had more than us, and we still won. I did appreciate, like, there was an aspect of not only was he acknowledging his time at Iowa State, but he was almost challenging himself to say, look, this is all on the table at Penn State. I've done it before, and now's the chance to take the next step. And that was another aspect of this that I really appreciated. Like, he was acknowledging the situation that he was in. He was appreciative of it, but he acknowledged, look, I did more with less. And that was his reputation forever. And now he has more. Like there's a lot of money going into that program. Actually, in his contract, which was approved this morning and details were released, 8 years, 70 and a half million base, with a million escalator each year. So it can actually get up to 78.5 million before even some incentives. There are a lot of them. But at the bottom of the contract terms, there was an undisclosed agreement for NIL, for player compensation, and for his staff assistant pool. Like, that's a new thing in college football for contracts to include something like that. And Penn State has it. I'm very curious to see what he can do with it.
Yeah, and I know Matt Fortuna, really good national reporter, on Friday night, put it out there that it's going to be what, 30 million, around 30 million in
Yep.
NIL, and then 17 million for assistant coach pool. I wonder if any of that is going to be taken out, when they ultimately move on from,
Right.
Jim Knowles and likely Andy Kotelnicki,
Yeah.
because it seems like, or it sounds like, Campbell's bringing his defensive coordinator at the very least, just as defensive
Mm.
coordinator, but maybe more. In terms of high level staffers, we'll see how that all shakes out, in the coming days. Matt Campbell's gonna be a busy dude. in the coming days. He had us to talk to today. I believe
Yeah.
he said during his press conference that after it, he was going to go talk to the team.
Yep.
And then the portal opens on January 2nd.
Yep.
So less than a month away. And there's going to be a whole roster to try to convince, in the meantime. And there's going to be a lot of, advanced scouting going on as players, notably a lot of Iowa State players right now,
Yeah.
already announcing their intentions of entering the portal. So, as busy as it has been over the last week, it's going to be very busy, not just for Matt Campbell, but for us,
Yeah.
as well over the coming weeks. And also, we're 20 minutes in here. Just a reminder, I know it says live on YouTube and all that kind of good stuff. When I know that we have some people in the chat, but just a reminder, this is a live podcast. So if you've got questions, feel free to shoot them our way. This is kind of an impromptu deal, Max. We normally do this Thursday at
Yeah.
noon, which we will do
We'll
again.
still do that this week. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I'm glad that's a great segue because there actually are two questions that I want to get to quickly, both from Jeff.
cool.
Very quickly, he said, "Will Campbell actually continue to recruit nationally, not just 6 to 8 hours outside of PSU?" A good mention there because he did say when I asked him about recruiting, we are on the most excellent football in the country, high school football in the country, within a 6 to 8 hour drive of us. I think, like, yes, he's going to recruit nationally. All you take that away as is the new version of the best in PA, stay in PA, I think is basically what that is. Like he's just saying that Pennsylvania high school football is really good and they're going to make that a priority, but he's going to recruit nationally. Absolutely. Johnny, the question from Jeff that I'd like to turn to you is, do you think that even as it sits right now, the Penn State roster is far more talented than what he ever had at Iowa State?
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if talent was ultimately this team's biggest problem. I mean, in key spots, we know the developmental struggles at quarterback, at wide receiver, and we don't need to totally dissect what went wrong with this team this
Yeah.
year.
We've done that a few times. We're probably gonna do it again soon,
We will
so
do it again soon. Tonight's not the night. But overall, I mean, yeah, the roster's stock full of 4-star guys, and Iowa State, those were hard to come by.
yeah,
Out names. So yeah, so
yeah,
not just from a recruiting star sense either, but we've seen a lot of good things from some young players on this roster. So yeah, I would say so.
yeah, I think I agree. Look, he had some good players at Iowa State: Brock Purdy, Brees Hall, David Montgomery, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, guys who all got drafted early in the NFL, but no complete roster quite like he's had here, or that that we had this season at Penn State that we saw this season.
Yeah.
Quick one that I've seen from a couple of people is the NIL money in the contract agreement a different amount than the money that is required by the House settlement. Um, I don't have the terms of the official contract, but yes, there is NIL money that goes to players beyond just that 20 and a half, 15 million, whatever, however they divvy it up.
Yeah.
That is a base that comes from the university, but from donors, from NIL Collective, more of that stuff comes. A
Yeah. And
question from, oh
and
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add, while everyone is kind of like every team, every major team, like a Penn State and Ohio State, Texas, whatever, everyone is going over that with the donors and all that, like third party NIL. Yeah, so that's part of that.
Yeah, didn't wasn't the number for Texas Tech this year like 40 million, I want to
Mhm.
say.
Yeah.
Something crazy. It's a lot more than the rev share agreement. Another good question, kind of projecting to the future from, I believe, Sergeant BB. I hope that's your username, and I got that correct. Does he have to make the Big Ten title game in 3 years for this to be a home run hire? The only thing that I'll say, I'm gonna amend that for you. I don't think the Big Ten title game is going to exist for the next 3 years. I'm pretty sure that's going out the window soon. So look, I think he has to make the playoff in the next 3 years for it to be considered a success, and maybe make it 2 out of 3 years. But that might be putting too much expectation on it. But I'm curious for your thoughts.
Yeah, I would say playoff in the first 3 years. I think
Mhm.
that's a fair expectation. Um, you know, again, a lot depends on how many players he's able to keep, what his staff is going to look like, what players he's able to bring in the portal for this upcoming season. They've got an easy schedule, man.
They do. They
I'm not
do.
I'm not saying it's going to happen right away, because again, this is a coach who is a builder, and while he had 11 wins last year at Iowa State, like this is a different beast than that, and he's going to need some time for forgiveness, right? Like there a little bit of
Right.
grace as he gets acclimated, to Big Ten play and everything like that. But I think making the playoff in the first 3 years is a fair expectation. You're at Penn State, right? So
Yeah.
that should be the expectation. I think give him a year or so, and you got to get to that dance. And who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe it's 24 teams by the time a
It's
few
true. In
years
which
all
case
around.
you really better make it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's absolutely out there next year. The schedule is not difficult, but there will be challenges with roster creation and player retention, staff creation. Like I think he'll get a pass in some ways for how next season goes, but I'm also just saying the schedule is easy enough that you can maybe get your hopes up a little bit. It's out there for
Let's let,
sure.
let's look at it really quick, Max, because I know for sure that Marshall is week 1, but
Yeah, there's no Ohio State, there's no Oregon.
you've got Marshall, Temple, Buffalo, Maryland, Michigan, Northwestern. Now these Big Ten games are not in order; they haven't released, the dates for the Big Ten games. But in the Big Ten, you've got Maryland, Michigan, Northwestern, Minnesota, Purdue, Rutgers, USC, Wisconsin, and Washington. Now that's at Washington, but you get USC at
Yeah,
home.
yeah,
I'm not saying 10-2, but like that
yeah.
seems doable.
Yeah, it's out there. It's out
Yeah,
there for sure.
we'll see.
Absolutely. Johnny, I'm flipping through my notebook, trying to find some more things for us to talk about with Matt Campbell. One thing that I think we'd really be remiss to bring up is Terry Smith. He
Yeah,
was kind of a hot topic today. Pat Kraft, Neely Bendapudi, and Matt Campbell all mentioned him in their opening statements. I think that was planned. I will just say that, but I also think that it was well deserved because, as we've talked about on these podcasts, Terry did a really incredible job. He bleeds Penn State. I mean, he's as Penn State as you can be as a human being, having played here, bringing family here, coaching here, and he's staying on what's reported to be a 4-year deal. And everybody had great things to say about him, but I'm curious for your takeaways on kind of that display for Terry today.
yeah, it was great. And you and Bob had the podcast on Friday night reacting to the hire. And while that was going on, Audrey Snyder broke the news initially, and then it was confirmed by Pat Kraft in the press
Yeah.
release that Terry would be staying. So I haven't been able to give my thoughts on it. I love it. I
Mhm.
love it for Terry that he's still going to be at Penn State. Like he, like you mentioned, like bleeds blue. That like this is his like Happy Valley is home for him. It has been for a very long time. And this program is going to be in a better spot because Terry is still there. Now I know that there might be some people, some fans who might be a little hesitant about that, given uh, you know the nature of how the last few weeks went. Right, like after the Nebraska game, the hire Terry stuff, some tweets from some players. One player in particular has deleted some of those tweets. That the roster is going to leave if Terry's not hired. Um,
I didn't realize he deleted them. I got to be honest. I hadn't looked back through.
I was told he deleted them. I actually didn't look for myself. So
Okay.
that's I'm holding myself to a low journalistic bar there. I'm
Mhm.
taking someone at their word.
Yeah.
But let's just check. Anyway, um, a lot has gone on. A lot has gone on with Terry. Some people might think like, oh, is he going to, you know, like is there going to be a locker room revolt? Is it going to be awkward? Like no, Terry wouldn't stay if it was going to be awkward.
No.
You know, like he would just go to Virginia Tech or go somewhere else.
Mhm.
It matters that Penn State wants him, and it matters that Terry wants to stay at Penn State, and I think that's a positive.
If you think about James Franklin had a good reputation as a recruiter at Penn State. I mean, he signed 2 elite classes. All the others were in the great range, I would say, to take from his famous 2018 speech. I think he was oh, yeah, what do you got?
Those tweets have been deleted.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. I'm guessing somebody, who maybe has some power probably told him to take them down, but I'm not positive. Um, anyway, point being, James Franklin was a good, great recruiter, even occasionally elite at Penn State. Uh, None of that happens without Terry Smith.
Yeah.
They dominated Pittsburgh, which has a lot of good players every year. They dominated Pennsylvania for the most part. Started to break into Philly toward the end. A lot of that is thanks to Deion Barnes. Um, Terry Smith is just really invaluable. Not to mention what he does as an on-field coach. Retaining him on the staff was absolutely priority number one after Matt Campbell was in place. I'm personally glad they did it. Terry's a fun guy to interview here and there. He's certainly got some great perspective, and it's just I don't think it can be overstated how important it is. The role is undefined at the moment. The reports say he'll be the head of assistant coaches, whatever that means, and if he has a position responsibility moving forward is still to be determined. Interesting crossover. Matt Campbell's cornerbacks coach at Iowa State is Hank Poteet, who avid Pennsylvania, Penn State, Pitt fans will know. He was a big star on the west side of the state and played at Harrisburg. Um, Great ties to the state and could really help out with recruiting and everything. Terry Smith was a cornerbacks coach before. Who knows? Going to be interesting. Couple of questions that I'd like to bring
Real,
up.
really quick before we get to the questions, just one more thing to add to Terry. Reportedly getting a bag as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. As he should.
Becoming the highest paid non-coordinating assistant in college football. So that is
Yeah.
that's a thumbs up for Terry. He earned it.
Yeah. He did. He did. I mean, and good on him for leveraging the support for him to be the head coach. I mean, these things are not independent of each other. He did a nice job in the interim, and he earned himself a great payday. That's part of this. Jeff asks, what about Brian Dable as the OC? That name we've talked about a lot here, kind of ironically enough. I don't necessarily think he will be the OC. I think Matt Campbell has a good OC that he had at Iowa State that could come with him. I think there are a lot of options. Somebody else in the chat mentioned Ty Howell, who is somebody that I think is going to get some looks elsewhere. Cough, cough, Virginia Tech, but is a guy that I would really like to see in that role. I think he did a good job of it when he was in the interim in 2023. Ty Howell is an option. I don't think Brian Dable is going to be the OC, but as I did say on a podcast a while ago, if he was going to come back to college, it shouldn't be as Penn State's head coach. But if he was going to be the OC, might be kind of fun. He's got a great offensive acumen.
He does. No, I think he will be an OC, whether that's in the NFL or in college. I do not think he will be at Penn State. And then on the Ty Howell bit, would not be surprised at all to see him go to Virginia Tech and perhaps become their offensive coordinator. Another thing too, wouldn't be surprised if Phil Troutwine is on the way out. It's going to be interesting to see how many assistants stay beyond Terry. Are they able to keep Dan Connor, Deion Barnes? There's a handful of assistant coaches that I wouldn't be surprised if we see a pretty solid reset here.
I agree. I think retaining the Letterman is a priority for Matt Campbell at some positions, or at least giving them an opportunity to stay. When you're talking about a Deion Barnes, a Dan Connor, a Ty Howell does fall into that as well. I think of the remaining assistants that are still here, it doesn't really get bigger than Ty Howell, Anthony Poindexter, and Deion Barnes, his ties to Philadelphia. But there are a lot of very good assistants on the staff that would be worth keeping. There's some reports out there about who Matt Campbell is bringing with him. John Haycock, his longtime defensive coordinator, is in the mix. Maybe not as defensive coordinator. He could be here in a different role. Ryan Clanton, his offensive line coach, who is somebody who interests me a lot. Iowa State's running game improved a ton after he took over. And also he's one of those just like football dudes. Like, hell yeah. He won a national championship at Oregon and That's right. I wrote his bio a couple days ago when I did a story on this. It's all mush. He played, went to the NFL. He wears shorts in the winter, like football guy. Love it. Looks great. But Matt Campbell said today, none of that's confirmed yet. I'm going to take the next 4 to 5 days to meet with every staff member individually, discuss where this thing is going. It's going to come hot and heavy as it's developing, but there's still a lot left to be determined with the coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, like if you had to tell me pick one assistant coach now beyond Terry, because Terry is already there. If I had to pick
Mhm.
one assistant coach to keep, I think I might keep Anthony Poindexter
I
because
think he's I think he's somebody Penn State fans know and appreciate, but I still don't know that his impact is properly appreciated.
the safety play has been like consistently has been great. And
Mhm.
players talk about players loving a coach. Um, Poindexter, commands a lot of respect, and not just in the safety room, but from a lot of players in the Lash building.
Yeah.
And Ty Hall's up there too, right? Because you want to continue that the tight end pipeline that Penn State, has had. But at the same time, too, has it gotten to a point that maybe Penn State tight ends it kind of sells itself? Just like
Yeah.
linebacker has for years,
Yeah.
potentially.
Yeah, it might. Ty Howell's done a lot of that work though.
He
And
does.
again, he is
Yeah,
a
he has.
letterman and he's also a really good recruiter. I mean, if he was to become the OC, OCs don't really recruit a whole lot as much as they used to. Different dynamic, but the guy has great relationships. People really like him. Every time I talk to high school coaches, they just gush about him on the recruiting trail. I think that's a big one. I think Anthony Poindexter, I'm not reporting anything, but I also think that if Haycock comes with Campbell and isn't the DC, I think Anthony Poindexter should have some serious consideration for that role. He's been kind of up for those jobs, a head coaching job here and there over the years. I think he's ready for it. I think he probably wants it in the right situation. And he stayed at Penn State over a lot of other opportunities. It's a guy who is just really well liked. And I also think like, he has the chops for it. I've been using that word a lot over the past few weeks, but, he really does have the chops for it. He's a great coach, well liked by his players, and I think he could get a look.
That's just one thing to wrap up on Dex. Could a Virginia Cavalier legend really go to Virginia Tech and coach
No,
there?
no,
I
I
don't
don't know.
know.
I don't know because I'm sure there's some deep rooted bad blood there, but also he's got a long relationship with James Franklin. His name's going to come up. We'll see how it happens. Johnny, in the chat, I've seen a couple of people talking about the quarterback situation, which
Yeah.
is a big one. We've written about it a lot. I've written about it like 3 or 4 times in the past 2 days, I think. Ethan Grunkemeyer looked really good as he continued to go through this season. I think we are all in agreement. He did some great things. His accuracy is really nice. I mean, he can sling it. He started to grow from a leadership standpoint, from a interview standpoint, even with us in the media. He grew in his vision of the game. Steady improvement. I think, and I've said this before, I think he proved that he can be a starter somewhere next year if it's not at Penn State. Terry Smith said he's the future of this program. Terry Smith's still here. Matt Campbell's going to talk to Terry Smith about Ethan Grunkemeyer. But let's also remember Matt Campbell has a 3-year starting quarterback at Iowa State in Rocco Becht, who is also pretty solid and could come with him. What do you do?
I don't know. I'm not
Yeah,
being paid to make those decisions.
right.
Honestly, it might not be either of them. There,
That's very possible. Yeah.
there's a chance that those NIL funds. We heard you listened to the leak, the Pat
Mhm.
Kraft leak.
Yeah.
When he was talking about how NIL has been, money has been, kind of allocated across the roster, whereas other schools don't do that. They pay premiums for top positions.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if look, unless Matt Campbell loves Rocco Becht, who, by the way, I didn't like when Campbell first got hired. I was like, well, Beck's going to be, graduating anyway, like because that guy has played so much football. I
He's got
didn't even
another year.
realize. I didn't even realize he had another year of eligibility.
Yeah.
Um, so unless he loves him and wants to bring him, and Rocco wants to come, uh, there's a there's a chance that they pay big for a quarterback in the
Oh,
portal,
yeah. Yeah.
and
We're
it's
talking
neither
multi-million.
Yeah, and it's neither Rocco Becht or Ethan Grunkemeyer starting at
Yes.
quarterback for Penn State in 2026. That is
Very
that is
rare.
a key big question that I know a lot of fans will have a lot of interest in. I don't think we're going to find out that answer um, for a couple weeks, for a
Yeah.
few.
I mean, look, the next time we get to talk to Matt Campbell, I think Ethan Grunkelmeyer's name is coming up,
Yeah,
but I don't know when that's going to be. Might be during bowl season. Who knows? But it's a big time decision that is going to have a lot of different possible outcomes. The one thing that I will debuff that I think I've seen a couple people in our chat today, but also I've seen people online. I've had people ask me about it. I'm going to push back on the notion that maybe you can bring Becht in and have Grunkemeyer stay as well and get ready. It's not happening. Grunkemeyer played way too well in his brief time as the starter. The kid's going to get money to be a starter somewhere. Maybe it's not even a Power Four school. Maybe it is a Power Four school. Maybe it's a lower end Power Four school. It doesn't matter what it is. Quarterbacks in this day and age, if they see an opportunity to start for multiple years and there's a paycheck that comes with it, they're gone. I mean, that's just the way it is, whether they really even want to or not. Sometimes it's out of their hands. Like, and that's a thing here. But I can with like 99.9% certainty tell you that Ethan Grunkemeyer and Rocco Becht will both not be on the will not both be on the roster next year. One of them may be, but I can almost guarantee you it won't be both.
yeah. If you're, I mean, look, if you're Ethan Grunkemeyer and you've started 6 games and they're going to bring in a transfer quarterback and pay him a lot of money to do so, whether that's Becht or someone else, you already got a taste of what it's like to be a starter. Why would you sit and wait for another year to do that when
Mhm.
your quarterback's coach, Danny O'Brien, is not going to be here? And maybe he goes to Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech kind of needs a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes, they do.
they need a lot, honestly. But yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised by anything when it comes to the quarterback position with Penn State and how their current quarterbacks are where their current quarterbacks are going to be, and maybe where their starter is going to be coming from. There is a lot to keep an eye on. Really, since the portal opens, like I said, less than a month. And again, keep those push notifications on for Rocco Becht's Twitter because maybe he's going to announce his intentions to enter the portal prior to that.
Yeah, it's absolutely possible. A lot of ways that could play out. I mean, the whole roster creation for 2026 in general is going to be wonky because the recruiting class, only two guys, there are a lot of spots on the roster that are going to be open. Who knows how many leave from the current roster? They're all going to get the chance to talk to Matt Campbell and figure out what's best for their futures. I'm certain a lot of schools are calling for some of the top guys already, or at least calling guys agents. So, no tampering, but it's going to get a lot different. There's going to be a lot that goes on. It's going to be interesting, Johnny. I think that just about wraps up everything on Matt Campbell. If somebody else has a question, we'll get to it here on the live impromptu version of the Blue White Breakdown. But the one thing that I do want to bring up, we have a little bit of news. Zane Durant opted out of the Pinstripe Bowl and is declaring for the NFL. I mean, look, I don't think it's a huge discussion. I'm not surprised. There will be more. I think some guys might play, but there are going to be more who opt out. But I just felt, we're here. It happened, and I might as well bring it up on the show.
Yeah, don't blame them. It's not like the entire team is opting out, like a team from South Bend.
Right. I
Insane.
I think that is a bad look. I'm trying not to say worse things. Like I know bowls don't mean that much,
I
but
know.
like that's weak.
I get it. Here's my thing. Like the committee is a joke. Like not that they put in Miami ahead of Notre Dame, but the fact that they kept the charade of Notre Dame being ahead of Miami the entire time. Objectively funny if you don't like Notre Dame.
Yeah.
That they had the rug pulled out from under them the last second. Uh, but the fact that you just kind of take your ball and go home. I've seen way too many memes of like the play like a champion sign. It was like
Yes.
quit when things don't go your way.
Opt out like a champion today.
Yeah, yeah, there have been too many good ones. No, getting back on the rails. Zane Durant, don't blame him. If other guys opt out of the Pinstripe Bowl, don't blame him. Does it deny Dennis Sutton opt out? Does it? Will Katron and Nick play in New York, or will they not? we'll find out. Again, do not blame those guys at all. And it's just going to open up opportunities for some of these younger guys who really have an opportunity here. And that's a nice thing about, on one hand, you know, maybe Penn State wouldn't have wanted to make a bowl, so then you don't have to worry about playing in a game, and you can, like, Matt Campbell can just focus on the staff and convincing players and all that, figuring everything out, and no one has to think about playing another game. On the other hand, having 15 practices is a big deal, especially for these young players, especially for the players who are going to still be at Penn State next season. So, yeah.
Yeah. Bowl games are diminished in a big way for a lot of reasons, but they still have some value. I mean, if nothing else, it's a chance for a roster who's been through a lot together to go hang out in a cool place, do some cool stuff for a little while, to get some extra practice. Young guys might transfer, but it's still valuable. Like, they have a place in college football, and completely opting out of one is like, that's weak. I understand why, because the committee, look, Notre Dame lost to both Miami and Texas A&M anyway. Head to head should count for something, but the way they strung that out was also a joke. But, like, I don't know. I'm in disagreement with a lot of things this weekend, and I'm going to leave it there. But Zane Durant's opted out for Penn State. Don't think he's going to be the only one. And I think that's all I have to say. Johnny, do you have any closing thoughts on Matt Campbell before we get out of here?
Just a quick plug. So after the Matt Campbell press conference wrapped up, after we did our post game video on the field, I got back to my car and I saw a text from Mount Union's media relations
Yeah.
staffer getting back to me with an interview set up, and I ended up talking to him, Larry Karras, the legendary Mount Union head coach who coached Matt Campbell, at the D3 powerhouse, also coached Nick Sirianni, who, again, Nick Sirianni, Eagles coach, and Matt Campbell were college roommates, also on the same staff together. They kind of broke into coaching at Mount Union along with Jason Candle, who went and had a great tenure at Toledo before taking the UConn job. Some really interesting stuff from Larry, and a story on Penn Live coming later this week.
Yeah, stay tuned for it. You asked Campbell about Nick Sirianni today, and he had a good quote. He said, he joked that he was responsible for them winning the Super Bowl last year because he told them that Saquon was really good. That was funny.
Don't blow it. That's what he said.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think we both agree. Really good introduction for Matt Campbell today. We'll see how it goes. You don't make any promises in this industry, but seems like a great fit for Penn State. Seems like Penn State is a great fit for him, and there's some hope. I mean, now it's time to get to work, build a staff, build a roster, and we'll see where this thing goes. But you'll hear from us a lot more this week. Bob Flounders and I will probably hop on sometime. You may hear from Bob on his own. Johnny, you and I will have a live podcast again on Thursday. We're going to have all sorts of content on PennLive.com that you should go check out and subscribe to us for. Follow the podcast if you haven't already. Appreciate you tuning in, and we will see you next time.